with a wish for all beings to be free, free of the constriction and contraction of held belief systems and thought patterns, free of the automatic reactivity of held emotional patterns, and free of distorted perceptions. I will always go for refuge to alive, vibrant, radiant, spacious awareness until awareness is ongoing, like the flow of a river. Enthused by wisdom and compassion, today in the presence of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, of any lineage and or any time, or no lineage or time, I generate the mind of full awakening for the benefit of all beings. As long as space remains, as long as beings remain, may I manifest in such a way to ease and dispel the miseries in the universe. We just finished elections in the United States. Many people are really discouraged by our elections. And evidently, many people are very happy about the election. Lama Lena talks a lot about the mantra of Chenrezig and how singing it or saying it, if you don't like your voice, tends to calm spinning energies, for lack of a better word. Mothers will sing it to their babies, or fathers can sing it to their babies too. It doesn't matter which. It is said if you're walking by a place where there's conflict, that if you just quietly, not for anybody else to hear, say the mantra, it will tend to calm the energy of the conflict. So I think it's an especially nice time for many of us. I know what the United States does affect the world, as does the large powers in our earth, on our earth. They all affect the world. So something happened with this. Lama Lena did a Tara practice, sadhana, to request that Tara help the wisdom, and I'm not sure how to put the words. Made me think of something, so I'm going to share it really quickly. Just to support the best and most beneficial outcome. And some people took that to mean if this person won, then Tara must be on their side. And I just want to reiterate for anybody that when we call on a yidam, and it made me realize when people thank God and go into a large description of what God has chosen for them, and that's great. But the winning team thanks God a lot in sports, and the losing team doesn't say much. Any of these sorts of looking for the words. When we're looking for wisdom or guidance, or we think we've been rewarded as any kind of individual, I guess I'll separate those. When we're looking for guidance, we are often appealing to a sense of wisdom and compassion in beings, if you tend to do that. It's not going to be, as all yidams, such as they are, arise when called from Sambhogakaya, which is not included in time and space. So there's not going to be, oh, look, Fig looks unhappy. I, this powerful yidam or such, will make her happier. I'm not saying it couldn't occur, but I think there's a much bigger picture that goes on in any of that. And much more its purpose is for open-heartedness and loosening our tight hold on what's right and wrong and good and bad and all the things we do. So there's a story you've probably all heard about the farmer who received a horse, a wonderful horse. And all his neighbors said, oh my gosh, how wonderful that you've received this horse. And the farmer just said, good, bad, who knows? And it was within a week that his son was riding the horse, and the horse threw his son, and his son's leg was broken. And the neighbors came again and said, oh, what horrible luck. How bad for you that this happened. And he said, good, bad, who knows? And then it goes on for a long time. I won't go on so long. But the next thing that happened was that there was a conflict in the country, and government agents came by and took all the healthy men at that time, that's the story, into service to go serve in the war. And then the neighbors came by and said, well, how lucky that your son's leg was broken. He couldn't go. And again, the farmer said, good, bad, who knows? And it continues on and on like this for a long time. The question is, in a big picture, unless you're omniscient, totally omniscient in some way, there is no way to know. It doesn't mean we shouldn't feel whatever we feel in any given moment. It just maybe allows that to relax a little bit without attributing things that may be, who knows, who knows, in the long run. It allows us maybe to relax a little bit. It doesn't mean we won't have a feeling that certain behaviors are cruel or mean or inappropriate. I've told this story somewhere else, but I'll tell it again. I took my grandkids. They wanted to go to this particular park to play. Had a nice playground. And not a big park, the playground, but nice. And so we went. And they went running off to play. And I noticed a man in a bright red t-shirt with a picture of Donald Trump on the front. And at the top, there was writing at the top that said, you missed me, didn't you? And at the bottom, it had in capital letters, B-I-T-C-H, which in English is bitch, which is a very derogatory and nasty thing to call somebody. Unless it happens to be your female dog, then it's okay. I don't know. It's used in a nasty way. And it's considered profanity. So he was with his wife, and he had wandered a bit. And I went to her and I said, it's wonderful that you're so happy about the election. However, I think wearing that on a playground with kids, some of whom can read, is really not appropriate. And she said, I told him, okay, I'm trying to keep my level of emotional reaction down. So maybe I'll have a little wisdom, right? So he comes running over, having heard, and he said, "Oh, yes, I just grabbed the first T-shirt." Well, it was the day after the election, so obviously he didn't just grab, but I didn't think that. It didn't go into my mind. And he said, and I know this is not, I shouldn't have this on. Now, the trouble with emotional reactivity is, had I had some wisdom in some way and not had that knot in my stomach or judgment or anything else, I had a sense of complete openness. It might have occurred to me simply to say, there's some restrooms over there. Would you please go turn your T-shirt inside out so that doesn't show? Simple solution, not based on right or wrong, other than most people agree that having swear words in front of kids on a playground is not the best idea. But it didn't occur to me because I really was fighting down some emotion and a lot of judgment about how inappropriate that was. I was afraid. Basically, if I look under everything, I was afraid. That's not something I expected in my area that I live. And it hit me hard for some reason because it was very much more personal. It wasn't an internet column where a comment where we can all people hide. It wasn't a, it was a father wearing something that his child would obviously see. And it was very personal when it's right there. So it hit me pretty hard. And I did not think, that did not naturally arise to make a simple comment that would protect my grandchildren. So there's something in there. And Chenrezig, perhaps if I said some mantra, my emotional reaction would have calmed a bit, and the simple answer might have arisen. Don't know. I wasn't there. I also refrained from saying things like, well, how wonderful. That's what you want your kid to take to school and say to everybody. No, I did not say that. I did not. That one I didn't think would be very beneficial because it would come from anger and judgment. So, how do we react? What does emotional reactivity mean? That automatic reaction to things, automatic emotional reaction that comes up like that, and we learn to work with. But with that, Chenrezig, it depends on where you are and what you want in a practice. There are times when you add fire to those reactive emotions to be able to be present with them and just rest with them with some openness and curiosity, actually. What's underneath that? This one pretty clearly for me was fear when I just relaxed for a minute. There are other times, like perhaps that time, when the mantra, the Chenrezig is the symbol of open-heartedness, of unconditional love, of open-mindedness. Perhaps there are times when simply taking a moment to say the mantra might help everybody. Don't know. It didn't occur to me to do in that moment. So with that said, I thought we try some Chenrezig practice. I'd like to try something. I don't think I've done it before. How about we start with the mantra itself and the sound of the mantra and see what happens. If there are any sound people here, more than it's almost always started visually. And actually, mostly it's done without reference to sound or vibration or taste or smell. But I guess those could be there too. So why don't we start with the mantra? If you have not heard what the Tibetans call lung, I think, Is that right? That doesn't sound right today. Anyway, it's where somebody that has received this through the lineage, through a teacher of the lineage, has you repeat it 3 times, and then you've received it, and you can do that for anybody that asks for it. It's not a teaching, it's just a Tibetan thing. I'm not sure exactly why, but I honor it. And so we'll say together or separately 3 times. The mantra of Chenrezig. It's the sound of what Chenrezig represents: open-hearted, unbounded, unlimited open-heartedness. Yes, I said open-hearted twice. I don't like to use a word that confines what that means. If I say love, it means something different to all of us. It does not exclude joy. It does not exclude grief. It does not exclude anything that may arise. It's utter openness without maybe without reactive emotion. I don't know. Not there. But we can share that for a moment. So here's the mantra. As this has been important in my practice, so I mention it, it may be yours, to feel the air, feel the sound of the mantra as you begin to say it. Feel the sound. It may feel like it's arising deep in the belly or lower and arising. Whatever it is for you, let some attention, awareness rest there. It's not just words. It is the movement of air. It is the movement of vibration. As we say this, allow yourself to experience it in your body also. We don't need to exclude our body and our sensations from whatever it is we're doing. So the mantra goes, Om, Ma, Ni, Pe, Me, Hung. Pronunciation is not the most important. If you learned it Padme Hung, that's absolutely fine. Om Mani Padme Hung. Om Mani Padme Hung. It's suggested that you continue quietly to say the mantra to yourself as we do this practice. But as we do that sound, maybe when you're on your own doing this, we can allow our awareness to rest in the sound itself. When you're saying the mantra out loud, are you hearing it inside or outside? Just that is such an interesting question to rest in, I think. Our ear organ is clearly hearing, and just rest there, inside or outside, or neither or both. Where's the separation? Where does the sound arise from? Where does a sound wave end? We know where our limitation of our ear organ, we know we can't hear it anymore after a certain time. But as you do this, it can be fairly easy for most of us to not physically hear, but perhaps sense, imagine, whatever word is good for you, the sound wave traveling out in all directions not just forward, but in every direction, not just up or down, every direction into the universe, recognizing that we do not know where that sound wave stops. When we stop hearing it, but we do not even know if the sound wave does stop. One of the recognitions that may help us be a little more aware of what we're throwing out into the universe. There is, and I will have to look more, there are teachings in Tibetan about the original movement in the universe, which is not tied to time. So I'm not even going to try to go there. It just hurts my brain. The original movement being nothing other than the vibration of sound. Pure, the sound of the universe without, perhaps, language or context or conception. Since there's science now to prove, if you care for that word, that light rays, we can now detect light rays all the way back to what we perceive as the Big Bang. Does that mean that in the past? So when we do these kinds of things, we can relax without the embedded concepts, notions that we have about things. We can do the same with sound. Perhaps no location of origination or cessation. The very vibration of the universe. No limitation in time or space. The vibration present in all life. As we do that, we can add a sensation, but in ultimate bodhicitta, there would be no being experiencing love for any other being. There would simply be openness, not clingy, not conditional, not attached. Light rays are waves also when they're not being particles. And I am going to move you right in the middle. As the son has come downstairs, and I'd like him to be able to use the kitchen, so we're taking a little detour.
I'll go to your coffee.
Oh, okay. You have the keys?
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. It's an amazing house he found in Airbnb. Anyway. Ooh, that's bright. Well, we're going to talk about light, so that's appropriate. Light rays. Can we even say they're separate from sound? So today, or the vibration. So we often start this with a calling up a time or a being that we felt open-heartedness for. So I'm not sure if we just rest in the pure sound of the universe, the pure vibration, as part of the source of all life. That leads me to look at the kayas. How about we go backwards today? And we rest in the open awareness of Dharmakaya. What's labeled Dharmakaya? That would be pointing beyond time and space. Difficult to put into words. Beyond any sense of duality whatsoever. No up down, no past future, no linear time of any kind, no right wrong, good bad, just resting in the idea, which it will be for most of us, of non-duality. No looker, no looked at. No describer. No the voice that's constantly nattering at us about what's going on. Awareness, in my experience at least, cannot be understood at all. For most of us, awareness means a being, us, looking at something else, does it not? I am aware because I notice that. I am aware. And yet, when we rest in that non-duality beyond any description of time or space, there is awareness. It's just indescribable for me. No seer, no seen. That requires duality. No separation of seer or seen, or act of seeing. One of the origination stories, don't think that's the right word, begins there. Well, outside of time and space, where's the beginning? Let's not get too stuck on trying to understand. There is vibration, perhaps. Movement. Like the colors of a rainbow. Not made of anything solid, needing causes and conditions to arise. not separate in any way. As independent colors separate from the other colors in the rainbow. The reflection of light. The original mistake of human, or perhaps other species, I don't know, of, say, being the red color and thinking all the other colors of light are separate. They're out there. I'm red. We do the same type of analogy with waves. Never made of anything but water. Each with its own particular form. But unable to sustain any kind of permanence or independence from any other way. We think it was amusing if there was a way of saying, I'm independent and I'm going to be me and I'm going to stay stationary and permanent. We would laugh. And yet we do the very same thing with ourselves. Waves of light, sound. The potential for anything to arise. Infinite manifestations in infinite space. Never static for a moment, all of us, all life, always in transition. Always interconnected. Dependent for the arising on, in any moment, on what the experience is around it. Not separate in any way. Can you imagine having consciousness as a wave? Don't know that they don't. Well, not thought to be. Some awareness, some consciousness, and arising in the middle of the ocean. Would there ever be a sense of loneliness? There are fellow waves all around you, all affecting each other, and all made of the very same water. Doesn't mean their shape isn't different. Doesn't mean anything like that. You have a sense that loneliness might disappear. And when your time comes, the wind calms down. Well, you're still water. You're still going to be affected. The shape of that wave is changing always, as is every other arising in the ocean. It's either sometimes incredibly comforting to sort of rest in that. We can bring it out into the original vibration or motion without a start or finish, so don't hold on to that. But whatever movement allows the arising of manifestations, us, the potential movement within, which we can call Sambhogakaya. Within this ground of undualistic awareness that is really hard to imagine. Awareness permeating this liveliness, radiance, luminosity. Pick a word, Sambhogakaya. Like the winds affect the ocean in the waves, each arising like a wave, coming into form. We're not in the same form we were when we were born. Well, one hopes. In thoughts, in feelings, perceptions, even form, the very form itself, changing all the time. No thing with a moment of birth or perceiving everything as a moment of birth, not independent from the moment of birth before it, after it, a sense of continuity. Oh, could rest right there. Sometimes this can feel terrifying. There's a little voice that might say, but what about me? Me, I am solid. I am me. That very voice tries to hold us still. Call it what you will. Survival instinct, whatever. Fear of dying is what holds us in our suffering. Otherwise, it'd just be arising in any given moment, always changing, transforming, until this form can't be held anymore and we dissolve back into the ocean. Not to die until something arises, the cause, for the form to arise in a completely different way. That's where that little voice, what about me, may get really loud. Never alone, utterly interconnected. Thich Nhat Hanh has a quote that enlightenment for the wave is when it realizes it's water. Enlightenment for any manifestation may be realizing it's never separate from the ground of the arising. That ground being beyond time and space. Not very easy intellectually to grasp that. Yet we can allow the sensation isn't the right word, the utter openness being pointed at. Ultimate refuge, right there, always present. How could it be not present if it is like the waves? We are like the waves, always part of the ocean. An ocean that is permeated by the aliveness of, if you will, of wind, interaction of tiny little bits of matter bumping into each other. And we can't even find the tiny little bit of matter that exists. But obviously something's going on. That'd be silly to deny that, don't you think? Ultimate refuge. So very simple. As the interconnected aliveness becomes more apparent, we can use the tool of trying to feel love for another being, or remember a time we felt love, or remember a time that we felt love from another being to us, if you had that experience. Simply to allow our heart to relax a little bit. And we can use the tools of light rays, the relaxation causing the expansiveness of radiant light of love, if you want, to touch all beings, 1,000 at a time. It's a beautiful practice for allowing the heart to open. To notice from this form the interconnectedness of all form. Thich Nhat Hanh says, something can't come from nothing, and something can't return to nothing. Spark of life, if you want. Simply arising and dissolving in every moment. Till that spark of life doesn't have the causes or conditions. To support the form of the body. Just goes back into the ocean. Like a gigantic recycling center. I like that image, others may not. That's why all those teachings, particularly Thich Nhat Hanh, comes to mind. How any form doesn't arise by itself. Couldn't possibly, independently. Ooh, here I am, a piece of paper. A lot of causes had to happen. And for that paper's journey, which didn't start as paper, to come to you or food, you can follow anything that we hold as independent. Heck, how independent is the apple as we're eating it? It's just becoming something else, transforming the shape into something else. Over and over and over again. And can you feel how the tightness, we're not going to stop that wave in ourselves or anybody else. Oh, we might get so angry sometime that and don't think it can't happen, that we actually attack or kill somebody else, or it happens by accident. Kill the fourth. Where does that wave go? Call it energy, it doesn't matter. Sparkly life. I like sparkles of life. That's it. Whatever practice we do, allowing the light to touch beings until there are infinite rays of light, infinite vibrations of sound, and there is no thing but light and sound, vibration. Not us looking at it. We are that. Resting there. The analogy of the ocean can be just as much the analogy of the waves in the universe. Waves of energy, doesn't matter what we name them. If the ocean were just a big old static lump of water, there would not be life. Are all risings, since we talk about the emptiness of Dharmakaya, empty of anything beyond time and space. Nothing and no thing are very different to me. There's no independent thing that even a scientist can find. We go smaller and smaller and smaller. We have virtual particles bouncing in and out. I don't understand any of that. I just think it's cool. But there is no no thing that everything is made of. It just looks smaller and smaller and smaller. Yet we wouldn't deny that manifestations occur. They're empty of origination. They're empty of a particle of anything that is discernible, an object. And yet here we are. Isn't that amazing? all dancing with each other. All life. If we imagine for a moment, and it may be true, I don't know, that all life that ever was, we're talking about beyond time and space here, that ever what we perceive as was, is, or will be, is all right there right now. Hurts my brain, but I really like it. You feel a bit of how it's not love for another, it's not love for an object or a thing, the interconnectedness. It's simply realization of interconnectedness, not as an idea. Wow. I look here and I say it all the time how grateful I am that we get to spend time together. I don't, as I look around, I don't perceive each of you as being a clone of each other. There's personalities and different sparkles, and yet just in our time together, what arises isn't an independent me sitting here talking with you. It's what arises in the interconnectedness of us being together. And how the hell that happens on Zoom, I have absolutely no idea. But neither can I deny that it does. Amazing. Maybe if we can find some relaxation. I think, again, somebody asked the Dalai Lama. So there's absolute freedom of action in this subject thing you're pointing out. And the Dalai Lama sort of nodded. The story is told. I wasn't there. And then the reporter said, so you could just kill anything. It wouldn't matter. And the Dalai Lama looked at him kind of puzzled and said, it would never occur to you to kill something. Would you take a cleaver and cut off your right hand because it was kind of bothering you that day? Everything is a part of everything. Knowing that intellectually is a little bit helpful. How do we actually experience it? Again and again? Whether you do a Chenrezig practice with the full sadhana and the beauty of all the symbols, that's wonderful. Or whether you rest as a wave in the ocean and feel the change, constant movement within ourselves by the interaction with other constant beings, interaction with beings, and their constant wave-like being. Or whether you rest in the utter indescribable. We try. Just try to rest in the openness beyond time and space, beyond duality. So how, of course, could we ever describe that? If I say it's completely open, it creates the duality of openness and closedness. Beyond all of that, beyond time and awareness that has no thing to be aware of. Whoa, ouch. Hurts my brain in such a happy way. So I guess what I'm saying is within this method, you all have had the method. You can all find Lama Lena teaching it on her website. Mostly visual, perhaps all visual. Doesn't matter. There's the original teaching. I think it's great to do the original teaching the way it's taught, but without holding it solidly, letting it grow, as it has because of your presence in this group. Every week is different, freshly this week. And yet it's never different in what it's pointing at. Well, I guess I'm hoping you'll let your practice grow as it does. If you start to think you're a doggy from Cirrus, or Cirrus, however you say that, like I guess Timothy Leary did at the end, perhaps you'll consult your teacher and see if you might have fallen out a little too far. But if you feel that for a little bit, okay, enjoy it. Why not? Maybe there are doggies for Cirrus. What do I know? Let your practice grow how it does. For me, this has been such a wonderful gift to be able to, frankly, share what arises with us all up together, because each of you has a different flavor of being. Some of us are very audio based, whatever the word is. Some of us are more sensation oriented. Some of us have a horrible time visualizing. Don't make the mistake of trying to get everything perfect in a sadhana if you don't have an ability. Well, it's not a mistake. It's just going to take a while, and you may give up out of frustration if you're not a visual person. Let this grow and expand how it does for you and us together. But however it arises and expands. Allow the aliveness of it always present, like the aliveness of life, to arise and dissolve, knowing that there is aliveness always. Those aren't the right words, best that came out. Don't try to become just the ocean or just the spaciousness. You can't become it anyway because you already are. But allow the dance within the spaciousness. Can we rest in not just the idea of beyond time and space? Can it occur that we are time and space without time and space? And we are time and space, not this or that. It told Madhyamika it does all kinds of things about trying to intellectually understand all of this until I don't know that this is true either. The intellectual mind just goes, ah, and the impossibility of intellectual understanding being the beginning and end of everything, the only path, just explodes on itself. And there, oh, what's beyond that? Doesn't exclude it. Nothing wrong with playing with intellectual stuff. It's fun for a lot of us. The further you go, the less there is to hold on to. Tantra. This is Tantra and Dzogchen all wrapped up in, they're never separate anyway. Tantra, the beauty of the different aspects that the idioms represent. And the idea, there's a saying that Guru Rinpoche made a promise. I don't know this, so I won't say it. I don't think all idioms start as what is perceived or told the story of as a form, but then in transformation out of the form became, don't mind the words, an aspect of that we name Sambhogakaya. And Guru Rinpoche made a promise, evidently, that anyone who called on him with utter open-heartedness and utter, I don't know, love and devotion doesn't sound right to me. Maybe pleading, I don't know. Please, can you help me? That he would arise at dusk or at dawn and be present. That was his vow. Now, of course, I learned that through the Tibetan system. So it had to be visual, right? You had to see a form of this, of Guru Rinpoche. But there's nothing that says that anywhere. That's just how things get squished. Doesn't mean that you couldn't perceive Guru Rinpoche as your heart, as you. It doesn't limit the arising of this aspect, always present, always alive, as the very heart of aliveness of Sambhogakaya, not just Guru Rinpoche. Any aspect of life can be called forth. Tantric practice, isn't that beautiful? And be right there, present, right now. I digress. Or even the teachings of intentional, it's not relative bodhicitta. We teach so much about. What does the Dalai Lama say all the time? You want to find happiness? Help others. Not destroy. Gets so misunderstood. Give what we have to give. We don't always have something to give. Sometimes perhaps we count as one as others, and we give to ourselves. But pointing at a habit of always focusing on self. What am I feeling? What do I want to do? And Dalai Lama says all the time, just do something for somebody else. What do you think if you want to be happy? What? What? But don't do it to get happy. Just notice the feeling of connectedness that happens. I think he's just pointing at the interconnectedness of all manifestations. I don't know. He didn't tell me exactly. All the kayas, all three kayas together can't be separate. You choose from practice of any kind to notice the squiggly things in the sky that are always moving. For the little black dots, maybe they're the same. I don't know. I don't need to understand this stuff. That are more easily noticed when you go to bed at night when it's dark and you open your eyes. And they're very easily noticeable for many of us. Or sometimes on a white wall, like Layla has in back of her. Sometimes easily noticed. What the heck? Maybe that's all we are, little bits of can't hold them, can't grab them. All pointing at the same connectedness, interconnectedness, wave-like quality, whatever you want to. There's no words. Om mani padme hum. That syllable that represents it's another seed syllable, represents Chenrezig, but I start to feel it represents the compactness, the very essence from which all life arises. And dissolves. We are a blip, a blink of what we perceive as time. Sometimes impermanence sounds like a great idea, especially when we think we don't like what's happening in our world right now. I'd like to end with a story if y'all are okay with it. It's one of my favorites. It's about a yogi that lived above his village in a cave. Beloved, absolutely beloved. Just from his presence. Let's make it a her this time, okay? Just for the hell. All the stories tend to be male. She was so beloved. And the Chinese came, or heard about this powerful yogi, and had gone up to the cave and dragged her out of it, and tied her with ropes behind a horse, and dragged her down the hill and in through the village. The yogi was so beloved that people ran out risking their own life, saying, "What can we get you? Can we give you, please let us offer you some water?" She said, "Oh no, actually, I'm okay." But the man on the horse is really, I imagine, pretty thirsty. Can you offer him some water? I'm going, okay, well, this is unusual. And on it went until she was put into prison and tortured. And through all of this, she had nothing but kindness and open heartedness for her fellow prisoners, but also for the torturers, seeing what misery it was causing them to torture. And she had such pure essence of this that wherever she went, in the first prison, all the torturing simply stopped. And everybody was just in prison together. Well, that didn't go well, and the authorities noticed it, and they pulled that yogi out of that prison and sent her to another prison. And over time, the same thing happened. And they tried one more time. Okay, this being, for some reason, is disrupting our whole torture thing here, and sent her to a third prison. Same thing happened again. And they finally just sent her home and said, okay, this one can just go home. If there'd been any tinge of, I'm going to act like this so I can get this. I don't really quite know how to get this into words. I can just feel it. There'd been any kind of, even the tiniest bit of hoping, the manipulativeness of trying to get something to change, nothing would have changed. It was the absolute purity of experience of the interconnectedness. And I always feel from that story that this is just a blip in time. This will arise and this will dissolve. No one moment in time being permanent or more important than any other moment in time. That's what I take from that story. But feel free to play with it yourself. That's what hit my heart. It must be so clear in some measure. Pure is a funny word, but I don't have a better one. And I can just barely get a glimpse or taste or a feel of what that might be like. Just a blip in time. There'll be another blip in time, and another blip of time, and another blip of time. Arising and dissolving. All of us together. Thank you so much. And it does not dismiss that some can be quite painful for most of us, for almost all of us. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you for your willingness to stay while I wander about with different things, or we wander about with different things. May all beings have opportunities to connect in ways that are meaningful for them. May all beings have an opportunity to at least have a glimpse of something that's not a come and go, something you have to get. Anything we think that we will get will make us be happy forever. We know better than that now, right? A glimpse of something that is not a come and go, always present. No thing but our own essence. May all beings find that freedom. And may we all keep walking together. Thank you